I never imagined that a normal workday would turn into something people would still be talking about decades later. Back then, none of us were chasing legends. We weren't looking for monsters. We were just construction workers trying to get a job done. It was 1958 up in Bluff Creek, Northern California. Remote country, thick forest, the kind of place where the trees close in on you and the silence feels heavy, even during the day. I'd worked in the woods most of my life. I knew what belonged there and what didn't. That morning started like any other. We drove out to the construction site early, coffee in hand, ready to get to work. But the moment we stepped out of the trucks, something was off. Nobody said anything at first. We were all just staring at the ground. Right there in the mud were footprints, not animal tracks, not boot prints, bare feet. They were massive, over 16 inches long, and pressed deep into the earth. You could see the toes clearly, each one defined. The heel was sunk down hard, like whatever made them carried serious weight. These weren't shallow impressions. They were driven into the ground. At first, a couple of the guys laughed it off. Someone cracked a joke about a prank. That didn't last long. You could follow the tracks straight through the site, one after another, moving in a line like a person walking with purpose. No staggering, no wandering, just steady, confident steps. I crouched down and put my boot inside one of the prints. My foot didn't come close. That's when the joking stopped. I'd seen bear tracks before. Plenty of them. Bears don't leave prints like that. They don't walk heel to toe. They don't leave toes shaped like a human's. And they don't scare grown men into silence before sunrise. Some of the guys admitted they'd seen tracks before, earlier that week even, but nobody wanted to be the one to say it out loud. There was an unspoken agreement. Something was moving through that area at night. Work slowed down after that. Every noise made us turn our heads. Every snapped branch put us on edge. You couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone out there, that someone or something had passed through while we slept. Word spread faster than we expected. A local newspaper caught wind of the story. Then another. Reporters started calling. People wanted proof. They wanted something they could see, something solid. So I went back out there with plaster and made a cast of one of the footprints. I didn't do it for attention. I did it because I knew what I'd seen, and I knew people wouldn't believe it otherwise. When that cast hardened and I lifted it out of the mud, it felt heavier than it looked. Holding it in my hands, I remember thinking, whatever made this is real. That cast changed everything. The newspapers ran the story, and someone came up with a name for it, Bigfoot. Suddenly, something we'd experienced quietly in the woods became a national sensation. Not everyone was kind about it. Some people laughed. Some said we were stupid. Others accused us of faking the whole thing. I got called a liar, a hoaxer, worse. Strangers who'd never set foot in those woods told me I didn't know what I was talking about. But here's the thing. I never said I saw the creature. I said I saw the tracks. And I know what doesn't belong in the mud of a Northern California logging site. Those footprints weren't carved. They weren't stamped. They weren't a joke. They were made by something that walked upright, barefoot, and heavy. Something strong enough to leave impressions that deep and move through a work site without leaving a trace of fear behind, except in the men who found them. Years went by, more sightings came out, more tracks, film footage, stories from hunters, loggers, law enforcement, people who had nothing to gain by speaking up. I watched as the world argued about what Bigfoot was, or if it even existed at all. All I ever knew was this. Something walked through our construction site, something big, something real. And once you've stood in the woods, staring down at footprints that shouldn't exist, you don't forget it. Not ever.